Hey everyone, welcome to Story Mantra, my little YouTube channel to help all the writers and authors out there. I wish the way someone had done for me back then, but here's a way to share my love of writing and reading and great storytelling. And we have none other than the author of these two books, The Compass of Character, but prior to that, The Art of Character. This is the book that taught me how to break down my story into a series, a workable, manageable series where character arc, growth, change, all of that aligns. This book has made me think really hard about my current work in progress, and it's a game changer. Let me put it this way. These two books go hand in hand, just like your credit cards do not leave home without it. I never do, which is why they're dog-eared, they're falling apart, and I still carry them everywhere I go. And of course, if you contribute or read Writer's Digest, you will find David's articles pretty much here in the workbook section, which is where and how I first discovered David. And everything he said made sense and logic and brought logic to my story in a way nothing ever else did. So who is David Corbett? He is the award-winning author of 6 novels, including The Long Lost Love Letters of Doc Holliday, nominated for the Lefty Award for Best Historical Mystery. His work has been nominated for Edgar, Anthony, Barry, Shamus, and the Spine Tingler Awards as well. And his second novel, Done for a Dime, was a New York Times notable book, which Patrick Anderson of the Washington Post described as one of the 3 or 4 best crime novels I have ever read. Corbett's short fiction has twice been selected for Best American Mystery Stories. His nonfiction has appeared in the New York Times, Narrative, and other outlets, including Writer's Digest, where he's a contributing editor. He has written 2 writing guides, The Art of Character, A Writer's Bible, and of course, The Compass of Character, which he also has taught at UCLA Writers Program, Lit Reactor, and at writing conferences across North America. David is a monthly contributor to Writer Unboxed, an award-winning blog dedicated to the craft and business of fiction. If you look below the video, you'll see the link to David Corbett, the purchase links for his books, and the purchase links for these 2 books, which I highly, highly, highly recommend if I haven't said it enough already. My co-host Lindsay unfortunately could not be here today because she lost internet, so it's just me hosting David, and I'm sure Lindsay would have loved the opportunity to see you because she knows how much I adore your books. So yeah, the whole family knows about you too, David, believe me, everybody knows.
Where is she? Is she in the Midwest getting hit with a storm?
In Ohio, and she is no down.
Where's she in Ohio?
Not quite sure where, but I know she's somewhere in Ohio. But I'm
okay,
not sure.
That's where I grew up.
Oh, really? Well, now she's gonna miss this even more.
Yeah, no, I live in California now. I much prefer the weather here, even as drastic and dramatic as it can be.
Yep, but it's not as cold as it is over there. So like I said, David's books are a must-buy writer's guides, and the one passionate topic which I also fell in love with in this book is the forces, the 2 oppositional forces that dictate the character's motivation, which is pursuing the promise of life versus protection from the pain of life. Could you please talk about that, David? Because I loved everything you had to say about that.
Well, what I mean by the promise of life is responding to the question, what is it that I really want? How do I really want to live my life? What kind of person do I want to be? Who do I want in my life? How do I want to go about achieving it? That's the promise of life. And it's almost all, no matter how successful we get, there's always something ahead of us. There's always a sense of unfulfillment goading us on a little bit further. But the minute you ask the question, what does the character want? Or, how do they want to live? Who do they want to be? The question that immediately arises, why don't they have it yet? And that brings up, what is the oppositional force? What is the resistance, as I call it, in Compass of Character, holding them back? And very often what's holding us back in pursuing the kind of life we want to live and being the kind of person we want to be is some element of fear that we have grown up with through our experiences because of the pain we have suffered. And by pain, I don't mean just physical pain. I mean shame, guilt, a sense of betrayal, a sense of loss. All of these things can affect our investment in trying to get what we want from our lives.
Here's my question. How does it hold us back or our character back?
By trying to protect ourselves from that pain, we develop habits that limit our willingness to full-throatedly pursue what we really want. We start making excuses for ourselves. We're saying, well, this is good enough. And we achieve a certain equilibrium with ourselves. Well, you know, if like the woman who pursued the love of her life when she was in college, and he broke her heart. And she now just says, well, you know, I can settle for projects now. That the guy I'll go after will be the guy who never say no to me. I'll be the one in charge. And if he's not perfect, well, I'll make him perfect because that's my job as a wife. I will, you know, work on him until he's, you know, I'll massage him. But the truth of the matter is, in the back of her mind, or the back of her heart, she'll know that she's sort of settling for second best. And we all do this. You know, if we've ever lost a job promotion, you know, we have a tendency to say, well, then fine, I'll just settle for. And in that sense of settling, we develop a certain sense of we know something's missing. We know something's incomplete. And in a story, what happens is that some event occurs. It's either an opportunity or a misfortune. Either there's a chance for something better, or something bad happens that has to be rectified, that makes the character have to act. They have to do something now. And it's, you know, depending on the gravity of that misfortune or the hopefulness of the opportunity, will depend on how strenuously the character is obliged to act and what sort of obstacles they need to overcome to achieve what it is they want. And in doing so, their idea of who they are and what they want may change. It may solidify. It may dissolve, and they may have to find that they may discover that what they thought they wanted isn't what they wanted at all. And that's your story. But the way to go about that, the way to go about finding, you know, where their faith in pursuing the promise of life and their fear that they may not be able to protect themselves from the pain of life comes from, is you have to look at their backstory. And the problem with backstory is it can become a vast pit into which all your writing endeavor can pursue, and you end up writing about your character's past instead of their story.
Yep.
So part of the composite character addresses this and saying, well, what do we really want to look at in the character's past? I mean, is it really important what grade school they went to? Is it really important, you know, how tall they are, or, you know, when they had the measles? Could be measles, depending on how sick they got. What you're looking for, and I learned this from a screenwriter named Gil Dennis, who wrote the screenplay for the Johnny Cash biopic, Walking the Line. And he said, what you're looking for are moments of helplessness, because when we're helpless, the persona that we've created for ourselves to sort of navigate the world fails. We're helpless. You know, suddenly we're at a loss for what to do or how to go about things. And our sort of, the confidence that we've had to manage most of our life suddenly falls away, and a deeper level of character gets revealed. And by moments of helplessness in the pain department, where we learn where the character's fears come from, and from their need to protect themselves comes from, are moments of great fear. So you try to imagine, what was my character's moment of greatest fear? Moment of greatest shame. And shame is a loss of status with someone that we want to respect us. We've done something where they no longer look at us in the same way. And shame is great for a writer because it's social. There's automatically someone else involved. Guilt, and that means doing something that harms someone else, or violating one's own moral code in the way the character himself knows. A lot of people say the difference between guilt and shame is that guilt can be forgiven. You did something, but it was if you just did it. Shame seems to characterize you as a human being. You're a type of person because of shame. People look at you as, oh, she's just that. She's the one who did that. And you're imprisoned in that false impression of who you are, which is why shame can be such a powerful tool for creating a character. So fear, shame, guilt. Betrayal is something I look at because it goes to trust. And trust, again, in a story is so crucial Because if your character's going to be interacting with other characters, how do they trust them? Why? Where does that trust come from? Has it ever been betrayed before? So if your character has ever been betrayed in the past, they're going to have some armor on whether they can really commit to a relationship or to a helpmate in the course of the story, which is going to impede their ability to get what they want. And finally, loss. What was your character's greatest loss of a loved one? Was it death? Was it a divorce? Was it a breakup? Was it a best friend who had a falling out and never reconciled? And what you need to do is look at those moments as scenes. You don't need to sketch them out in perfect prose, but you need to really feel them and understand how they really affected your character's sense of, can I really get what I want from life? Or am I the kind of person who doesn't get what I want from life because of all these things I've been through? Okay, so those are the negative ones. But we still, all of us, or most of us, depending on how terrible your character's life has been, have some sense still of the promise of life. And those moments of helplessness, you just turn them off. Moment of greatest courage instead of moment of greatest fear. When was your character brave in a meaningful way? Instead of shame, moment of greatest pride. I call this, when was your character's golden moment? When is the moment they feel they really shone? And a question I always ask when I do that, was it public or private? Did anybody else see this golden moment? It can be very poignant for a character if their golden moment has never been shared. I mean, nobody was there, but they feel it, they know.
And this is still in their backstory, those moments.
Right. These are just questions, and then instead of guilt, forgiveness. Forgiveness. When did your character forgive someone who hurt them? Or when were they forgiven for hurting someone else? That's an incredible moment in the character's life. And if you own that, you realize they're capable of that. They're capable of either forgiving or understanding what it means to be forgiven. Across from betrayal, trust. When did they put their faith in someone and it actually panned out? And then loss, connection. When did they open up to someone and say, I love you? And know it and mean it. Now, I do those 10. You can choose whatever questions you want. But what Gil would do for the sake of the story, he usually only asked 3 because he felt he could get a story arc with that. For example, with Johnny Cash, he asked, what was your moment of greatest sorrow and greatest loss? And Johnny Cash said, it was when my brother died when I was 9. When was your moment of greatest shame? And he said, it was when I hit June in front of the kids. He said, when was your moment of greatest triumph or joy? And he said, it was when the whole family performed together at the Grand Ole Opry. Now, what's interesting about this, and this you'll find this happens when you do this backstory work, and I don't know why exactly, but notice there's a theme underlying there. The theme is family. Connection to family, his brother, his wife and the kids, and the whole family. Those are the things that connect those 3 moments. And if you explore a character well, you'll almost always get to see that, oh, that's the character's story. That the character is going to go from a moment of whatever one of their worst moments was, toward a moment of triumph. That the story is going to reflect that past in some way. And that they're going to get the resolve to achieve what they want because of the positive moments that they've experienced. But what they're going to have to overcome are the fears that have been embedded in them because of the moments of pain that they've experienced. And if you just look at, I just did 10, maybe you don't need 10, maybe you need 3. And one of the books I worked on, the moment of greatest shame, greatest loss, and greatest betrayal were all the same moment.
So
and
for a character to I'm sorry to disturb you, but I have to ask this. For a character to overcome the resistance from the past, whether it's guilt or shame, and of course you're saying to use those in the context of the current story to build that as motivation to move the story forward. How do you know what level of positivity you need to overcome that?
I wouldn't word it that way. What I would say is that you need to, whatever the character is pursuing, it needs to speak deeply to their sense of who they want to be and how they want to live. And they have to be aware of it enough at some point in the story that they realize that if they give up on it, if they give up pursuing what it is they need in the story, they are in some sense giving up on themselves.
Which is a promise
And
of
that is what will, that's the motivation. Ultimately, that's the deep motivation for every character, in that they have to understand that, but if they fail, they've not just failed in accomplishing something, they failed in a very fundamental way to be who they know they should be and live the way they should live. And they're going to have to live with that for the rest of their lives. And the stakes in the story have to be enough that they see that.
Is that the tip of the triangle that comes up in Maslow's hierarchy, where you have the 5 fundamental needs, and then the topmost one is, spiritual yearning? Is that the same thing, or is this different?
It's not unrelated. The deeper you go, let's say that if you can tap into those deeper longings with your character and make sure that whatever they're trying to pursue in the story speaks to those deeper, to us, not just survival, which is the most fundamental one. Because merely surviving in a story isn't going to be very interesting. You're going to have to say, well, why do they want to survive? What is it that they're trying, what will make survival meaningful? And that's going to speak to those other levels. It's going to be either someone in their life that they want to see again or they want to protect. Survival isn't just personal. It's going to be, with respect to this other person as well. It could be in a certain sense of morality, that it's right that I survive because there's something I need to do to make that there's an injustice that needs to be rectified. It may be spiritual in the sense that survival is important because it speaks to what I think is my reason for being. That it speaks not just to me existing on the planet Earth, but to my soul, to my purpose, my reason for being here. And normally, for so many people, and probably for me, I think, it's often not until a true shock to the system, like the death of a loved one, occurs, or a terrible failure in a relationship, that we actually begin asking these kinds of questions. It's usually when we face death in some way, or what feels like death, that we ask questions like, well, what am I doing here?
Could that be like the inciting incident?
I'm sorry?
Could that be like an inciting incident to start the whole story?
It could be, but usually the inciting incident usually is more superficial than that. And the story normally gets us, the discovery of this deeper, why am I here, usually doesn't happen until the character is the lowest moment, which is usually at the end of Act 2, where the character is having the dark night of the soul and asking the deeper questions. Why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? I'm failing. Why don't I just give up? And the answers to those questions will always speak to identity in a fundamental sense. Well, who am I then? Why am I, those are the key questions of what it means to be me for the character. And if they short arm that, if they don't ask the question honestly, or if they try to deny its importance, their efforts are going to continue to fail. Only by tapping into that deeper sense of who I want to be and how I want to live. Am I going to be,
which will require them to overcome the pain of resistance.
Yes, exactly. Overcome the resistance, the habits of behavior you're creating, saying, well, enough is enough. No, it's not, because you're not happy. You can see it right there. You can see what you need to do, and you're just going to have to muster the courage. Can you do it? And that's that moment in the story that truly makes a story memorable.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David. I could listen to you all evening, seriously. Just like I read this book and I've been carrying it around for a whole year now, because I have literally, I want everyone to understand, I have used this book for my current work in progress, which I've been developing since 2006, but I didn't quite understand my characters until I read The Compass of Character. And I started applying the exercises to my book, to my story. And I started to see things I'd never seen before, never understood before. And it was like a game changer. That's how powerful David's books and his, instructions are. And I would suggest, if you haven't heard of this book, go check it out. The link is below, right below the video. If you haven't bought the books, as somebody who has learned from both of them, I would say start with The Art of Character first. And once you're done with this book and you've applied some of the knowledge that you could to your work, then move on to The Compass of Character, which is what David is talking about. You could read this one first. It's all up to you, but that's how it worked for me. And it's just, a very, very personal thing. But these books are game changers for any writer. And like the review said, they are a Bible. They are my writer's Bibles, and they go with me wherever I go. So thank you so much, David, for just, being with us, for teaching us everything that you could squeeze in the last like 20, 30 minutes or so. And, just coming on Story Month. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. And good luck with your books. They're really lovely. And I'm so proud that I had anything to do whatsoever in helping you write such a marvelous book.
Oh, thank you, David. I mean, it's been a journey. It still is. But, what I will say is, though I've been developing the series for 20 years, if it weren't for these two books, they would have just been a culmination of pages. But, having had the gift of your words and your wisdom, I was able to segregate, clearly mark off one story from another story, which I had done, but this time with a deeper understanding of character growth versus character change, which is huge, and which can be a game changer for any of you who are looking to write a series as well. How do you change your character's motivations, and how do you make a story different so you're not retelling the same story? Well, the answer is right here in these two books. So I can't speak enough about them, and I could talk about them all night if you wanted me to, but I won't, because you just need to buy them. So the link is below, and thank you everybody for tuning in. And I hope this has been helpful for you as it has been for me. Thank you, David.
Thank you.